I didn't expect to feel broke buying bananas. But there I was, standing in the checkout line with a half-empty basket, watching the total climb to nearly $180. The cashier smiled politely while I tried not to panic. Later that week, my electricity bill arrived, higher than usual even though I barely ran the AC. It felt like money was leaking out of my life faster than I could earn it. That night, scrolling online, I stumbled on a photo of a 1940s ration book. Families back then survived war, shortages, and sky-high prices by living on the bare minimum. They reused, repaired, and stretched every single dollar. So I asked myself, if they could make it through wartime frugality, could I survive a month without my modern spending habits? That's when I decided I would live like it was the 1940s for 45 days. To understand what I was about to try, I had to picture life in the 1940s. It wasn't Instagram thrift chic. It was survival. World War II stretched across continents, and ordinary people faced shortages of almost everything: sugar, butter, gas, clothes, even soap. Governments introduced ration books, filled with coupons that controlled how much each family could buy. Posters encouraged people to make do and mend. This meant patching worn clothes instead of replacing them. Families grew food in victory gardens because grocery stores didn't always have enough. Women melted leftover fat for soap. Children collected tin cans and rubber for the war effort. Entertainment was simple: listening to the radio, playing cards, or singing with neighbors. Waste was not just frowned upon, it was unpatriotic. Looking back, their resourcefulness was born out of necessity. But it wasn't just about saving money, it was about survival, dignity, and resilience. And here's the twist: many of those 1940s habits could still help us today in a world where inflation, debt, and high living costs feel like their own kind of battle. Armed with this history, I set my rules. For 45 days, I would live by 4 simple guidelines inspired by the 1940s. Ration-style groceries only. No takeout, no fancy coffee, no processed snacks. Just basics like bread, beans, vegetables, and cheap cuts of meat. Make do and mend. No new clothes, electronics, or decor. If something broke, I had to fix it. Cash-only spending. If I didn't have the bills in hand, I couldn't buy it. Simple fun. No expensive nights out. Only free or low-cost activities. I told myself this wasn't about punishment. It was an experiment. Could I save money by copying the past? Could I learn something modern life had made me forget? Honestly, I doubted I'd last 2 weeks. But what happened next shocked me and changed how I think about money. Then, the grocery revolution. The first big shock came at the grocery store. Normally, I shop without much thought. A pack of chips here, a frozen pizza there, maybe a $6 iced coffee on the way home. But under my 1940s rules, I had to think like someone with a ration book. That meant sticking to basics: bread, potatoes, carrots, beans, eggs, and whatever fruit or vegetables were cheapest that week. At first, it felt like a punishment. My cart looked sad compared to everyone else's. But once I started cooking, I realized something. These foods stretched much further than I expected. I made soups that lasted 3 days. A single loaf of homemade bread cost less than $1 and kept me fed all week. I even learned to turn leftovers into entirely new meals: potato cakes from last night's mash, vegetable stew from fridge scraps. To make it fun, I planted a few herbs and lettuce in pots on my balcony, my own victory garden. Snipping basil from a pot to flavor dinner gave me the same satisfaction as splurging on takeout. By the end of 45 days, the savings were clear. I spent less than half of my usual grocery budget. Add in no takeout and no delivery fees, and I had saved over $700. What started as a challenge turned into a revelation. Food didn't need to be fancy to be filling or expensive. The wardrobe economics. Fashion without spending. Clothing was the next test. In the 1940s, people couldn't just order new outfits whenever they felt bored. Fabric was rationed, and make do and mend was a national motto. So for 45 days, I bought nothing new. Not a single t-shirt, jacket, or pair of socks. Instead, I patched my old jeans, sewed a button back on a shirt, and swapped a jacket with a friend. To my surprise, I actually felt proud of my new pieces. I also stopped mindless online browsing, which meant no more late-night impulse orders. That alone saved me hundreds. In the end, I saved around $300, but more importantly, I learned that style doesn't come from shopping bags. It comes from how you wear what you already own. Before we get into how I handled entertainment the 1940s way, I'd highly recommend that you subscribe to this channel if you want practical tips on saving money, cutting costs, and building financial freedom step by step. And don't forget to like this video and share it with a friend who might find these ideas useful. Entertainment was where I thought I'd feel deprived. No movies, no concerts, no nights out with friends. But the 1940s had their own version of fun, cheap, simple, and social. Families gathered around radios for evening shows, kids played board games, and neighbors organized dances or card nights. I copied that spirit. I borrowed books and audiobooks from the library. I hosted a board game night instead of paying $60 for dinner and drinks. I took evening walks and actually talked to my neighbors. The surprising part? It felt richer than scrolling on Netflix. My nights had laughter, connection, and zero receipts. By the end, I realized I didn't miss the expensive outings at all. And my wallet didn't either. I had saved around $400 on entertainment in just 6 weeks. Then, the cash-only reality check. If there was one rule that really changed me, it was this: cash only. In the 1940s, people didn't swipe cards or tap phones. If you didn't have the money in your wallet, you couldn't buy it. I decided to copy that by using the envelope system. I labeled envelopes, groceries, transport, fun, and filled them with cash at the start of each week. Suddenly, every dollar felt heavy. Paying with cash made me stop and think, do I really need this? That little moment of hesitation cut out so many random buys, snacks at the gas station, quick online orders, and small things that added up fast. The hardest part was saying no when the envelope was empty. But that was also the most powerful lesson. With cash, there's no borrowing from tomorrow. You face the limit today. By the end of 45 days, I had saved over $450 simply by cutting out impulse spending. The discipline felt tough at first, but it gave me something I hadn't felt in a while: control. The hidden savings, energy, repairs, DIY. The 1940s taught me that nothing was too small to save. Back then, families reused everything: soap scraps, jars, old fabric, because they had no choice. I tried the same. I started line drying my clothes instead of using the dryer. I fixed a squeaky chair with glue instead of replacing it. I learned to sow small tears instead of tossing clothes. Even simple changes like turning off lights more often or cooking in bulk chipped away at my bills. By the end, these invisible habits saved me another $200. They weren't glamorous, but they worked and gave me a weird sense of pride. What I didn't expect was how different I felt inside. At first, I thought this experiment would be about money, but living with fewer choices actually made me calmer. Instead of standing in a supermarket aisle debating between 10 brands of pasta, I just bought the cheapest and moved on. Psychologists call this decision fatigue. The 1940s lifestyle stripped that away. With fewer options, my brain had more space. With less spending, I felt lighter. Oddly, the limits made me feel free. I didn't have to chase sales or stress over the latest trend. Life was simpler, slower, and more focused on what mattered: food, friends, and time. I went in expecting scarcity. What I found was clarity. When the 45 days were over, I sat down with my notebook and added everything up. The numbers shocked me. In total, I had saved more than $2,000 in just a month and a half. That's money I would normally spend without even noticing. But the real surprise wasn't the money. It was how different I felt. My days were calmer. I wasn't glued to shopping apps. I had more energy, and even my meals felt more meaningful because I had made them myself. What started as a fun challenge turned into a lifestyle shift. I realized that saving money wasn't just about cutting costs. It was about changing habits. So, why does a 1940s mindset still work today? Because the basics haven't changed. Back then, people lived with limits. Today, we live with endless choice, but it comes at a cost. The truth is, simplicity saves. But they work because they cut waste and force us to focus on what matters. In 2025, with inflation, debt, and the pressure to spend on everything from streaming to subscriptions, these lessons feel even more urgent. Living frugally doesn't mean living poorly. It means living smart with intention. The 1940s showed me that freedom isn't about having more, it's about needing less. You don't have to copy everything I did. But try just one habit. You might be surprised how much you save and how much lighter life feels. Now, if you want to learn more about achieving financial success, then watch this video next.